The Detroit Red Wings and Anthony Mantha have come to terms on a long-term deal, plus we also have the details on the arbitration filing numbers for Ryan Strome and the New York Rangers. We'll discuss that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a pretty significant signing here today with the RFA. Anthony Mantha avoids arbitration and signs a 4-year contract with the Detroit Red Wings with an average annual value at $5.7 million. Now, this is the type of contract that we've seen throughout this offseason where the salary does escalate. It's more of a backloaded contract. For the first year, he gets $4.5 million, then it goes up to $5.3, and then the final 2 years are $6.5. As far as we know, the only part of it that's involved with a signing bonus is in year 1 for the current season, which gives him a $300,000 signing bonus, and the rest of it appears to be straight salary all the way through. And there's also no form of a no-trade clause, so there's no trade protection in here at all. Mantha was only a year away from becoming an unrestricted free agent, so this does buy up 3 of his UFA seasons. So that's an important to note here, which is kind of part of the reason why I think the AAV is a little bit higher than I probably would have thought it would be, but I guess when you're buying up UFA years, sometimes that can cost a little bit of money. They're certainly paying him a portion for what he's accomplished so far and what they hope he's going to become longer term here as well. I mean, he's had some solid years so far in Detroit, but at the same time, he has battled some injuries recently as well. So obviously in the case of Mantha here, he should be a pretty consistent 25 to 30 goal scorer. You never know, he might even eclipse 30 at some point, but he's a real big, strong guy, can certainly put the puck in the net, and appears to be one of their key pieces to the team's future, along with some other forwards like Dylan Larkin and Tyler Bertuzzi as well. So at least now they have a big chunk of their core younger players under contract for the next little while, which is good to see. But it's certainly going to have an impact, I think, on other parts of the market here, even on the UFA market. I mean, you have some UFAs out there that are still wandering around that are pretty decent goal scorers that are probably going to look to this contract to use someone as a comparable. You also have some other RFAs as well. There's not a lot of RFAs with arbitration left on the market. There are still many other younger RFAs that have not qualified for the arbitration rights as of yet as well that are still needing to be done, which we could see some pretty significant signings there. But obviously, in the case of Mantha, the Red Wings get this out of the way, and they still have enough salary cap space, like I mentioned before, like we've seen them do with Mark Stahl. Would not be completely shocked if the Red Wings made another acquisition where they pick up another unfavorable contract, as long as it doesn't have a lot of term on it, for basically, next to nothing, as long as something else is thrown in with it as a bit of a sweetener. And then at the same time, maybe that player can have a chance to play a bigger role, kind of reinvent themselves, and maybe the Red Wings can ship them out at the deadline and get something back so they can kind of weaponize their cap space in that regard, where they get something now and something later. Wouldn't be shocking to see them do that, because now that Mantha signed, they do have enough space left over that they could make that kind of trade. But then we've heard Steve Yzerman talk about it before when they acquired Stahl, that they might still have an appetite to do a little bit more of that. So we will see how the Red Wings proceed there with the rest of their offseason, if we see any other moves of that sort. Now, other minor signing as well is the Panthers in Florida have signed Mason Marchment to a 1-year, 2-way contract, league minimum at the NHL level. Of course, Marchment was acquired from the Maple Leafs before. He's been primarily a minor leaguer for his entire career so far. I think he's played a few NHL games, but not much. Pretty well stuck as an AHL player, but a decent one at that. So we'll see what he does. But Florida is still looking for, some kind of regular opportunity. Debatable if he'll find it or not, or at the very least, he'll have an experienced player playing in their minor league system. So Marchment also under contract here for Florida. Now, as I mentioned as well, we have the case of the Rangers and Ryan Strome coming up. Now, they're about 2 days away from the actual hearing starting, so we still could possibly see a situation where they avoid arbitration and get a deal done. But Elliot Friedman has noted here what the player and the team have both filed at, so we can discuss that here a little bit further. Now, the player has filed at $5.7 million, so that's pretty significant. Of course, that's what we just seen Anthony Mantha sign for. Very different player. Of course, Mantha's a scoring winger, where Strome's a center iceman. Certainly relies a lot more on playmaking than goal scoring when it comes to getting his points in his offense. Of course, he's also played with some pretty good players during his time with the Rangers as well, so it certainly has an impact. Now, the team's coming in only at 3.6, so that's $2.1 million gap between the two sides, so it's not a wonder why we haven't seen a contract here as of yet. Now, could they maybe meet in the middle, do a $1 million difference, sign around $4.5 million? It is a possibility, but you also have to remember that the New York Rangers probably won't want to go quite that high, because if Ryan Strome is awarded a contract of $4.5 million or more by arbitration, they have the option to walk away. Now, if they do that, he instantly becomes an unrestricted free agent, which means that they could be at risk of losing for nothing, because he could sign with any NHL team at that point. But there's not a lot of teams out there that's probably going to be willing to give him a $5 million contract. If you look at some other free agents still on the market, like a Mike Hoffman, for example, who's having a really hard time getting $5 to $6 million, I can't imagine that a team is going to throw $5 million at Ryan Strome. So there still could be a possibility that the Rangers could say, like, listen, like, we're willing to keep you, we want to sign you, we just don't want to pay that much for your services. So if you're willing to, kind of come back to the table here at a lower amount, closer to that 4.5 mark, then maybe we can do some business. So it wouldn't mean for sure that the Rangers would be completely done with Strome, but oftentimes when you go through arbitration and you have it, like, it's not often you see a team walk away, but usually when you get through that process, sometimes there can be some hurt feelings. And like I mentioned before, there is some history there. If you look back at all these cases that in the last 10, 15 years, many players do not stay with the team for very long after that takes place, once they go through that process, because some nasty things are said. Teams want to save as much money as they can, and you'd be amazed what they'll say about you, when they're trying to look at it strictly from a business perspective, and it can be quite a process. So we'll see what happens here with Ryan Strome and the New York Rangers. I do not see the Rangers wanting to pay him $5 million, though, or anywhere near that. So I guess we will see what they do. I mean, could it be closer to 4.5? That's a possibility, but I could see the Rangers maybe pushing, maybe 4.3, 4.4, something in that range on a shorter term contract for a couple of years. That's probably the best they're willing to do, would be my guess. And then that way, if they go to arbitration and they get them over the 4.5, then they have the options to say, no, that's okay, we're done. If you're willing to take less, come talk to us. Otherwise, best of luck to you finding that kind of money on the open market on a flat salary cap with very little teams that can offer it to you. I mean, you could see a team like a New Jersey or a Detroit or another team that's near the bottom of the standings that does have cap space that might be willing to do it on a short-term deal. Maybe. We'll see what happens. But they have approximately 48 hours before the hearing gets underway. Today's Tuesday. Hearing, I believe, is scheduled for November the 5th on Thursday. So if they don't come to terms ahead of time, once that process starts now, because of the new rules, they cannot negotiate while they're waiting for the results. So the hearing would take place Thursday. We'd probably get the results somewhere around Friday or Saturday, would be my best estimate on that. So let me know what your thoughts are on the Mantha contract. Let me know what you think is going to take place in the Ryan Strome case with the Rangers. Are they going to come to terms? What would you be willing to pay him if you're into the New York Rangers? And we'll discuss further down in the comments. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.